Okay, my takeaway was that I saw the businesses had the crisis more under control than the political aspects, and that they trusted their certain companies and they than Trump and the administration. And I definitely see that people are getting tired of watching the news because a lot of it, they don't know if it's fake or real. And that's what I took away from it.
For me, one of the interesting things to note was in the US response among people, the companies, the sectors that were had positive feelings. Computing, that's obvious as we're on Zoom right now. And frankly, I understand why it's Apple, because I'm on an Apple computer right now. And then also it was interesting, insurance companies, which I think was related to an early move that the car insurance companies made of refunding people because they weren't driving very much. As far as the sectors that were given negative attitudes in the US, that's going to be farming and public administration. Public administration is kind of obvious with our dear leader. And I think that the farming was related to those images we saw early on when there were food shortages and people were going hungry, the farmers dumping milk into the ground and those sorts of things. So I think that the situation on the ground affects how people are going to feel about a company at any given time. And to me, that speaks to the fact that this is a very dangerous time for companies.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off something you said, Karen. I do find the numbers on farming quite interesting. I think based on sort of my personal experience, I feel like, at least in this state, people are becoming more aware of where their food is sourced, where it's coming from, the role of local family farms. And I feel like that message is getting out there. However, we've also had, on the flip side, these instances of sort of industrial agriculture and the big sort of factory farming. And we've seen in like certain Tyson plants there have been COVID outbreaks. A lot of migrant farmers have struggled with this. And I wonder, when we talk about farming, maybe we need to get a little bit more granular with that data. And what are people thinking of? Are they thinking of sort of the big industrial agriculture, or are they thinking of sort of small local family farming? And where is each sort of in their mind on legitimacy? I just wanted to throw that out there. One thing I found interesting was looking at in the US companies and legitimacy, that Ford was one of the really early companies to step up and say, we're going to switch to making ventilators. And they are, in at least as presented on slide 15, they gained the most in terms of legitimacy, whereas General Motors still had some gains, although far more modest. And I wonder if that's due to their sort of early hesitation to switch to making ventilators or other equipment that was needed, and actually getting called out by President Trump for sort of slow walking it. And I think he even threatened to use the Defense Production Act to force them to make some of this stuff. I don't believe he ever did that, but I do remember that being on the table. Meanwhile, if you look at companies that lost legitimacy, Tesla is the one that stands out there. And I think a lot of that ties back to Elon Musk, who has been kind of a disaster during this entire situation. You know, threatening to reopen his plants despite, you know, the guidance that was, you know, created in California, saying that, you know, boasting that soon the U.S. would be down to 0 cases, much like the president. He's kind of been all over the place, and I think he's sort of a big reason that brand has taken a hit. If you look at some of the others, I don't necessarily have good answers for why GameStop would have lost such legitimacy. Maybe there's something I'm missing there. But Tyson Foods, Smithfield Farms, these, they all had COVID outbreaks in their respective factories. So I would say, to wrap up, this is really a tremendous amount of data. I really respect what these guys have done. Trying to review it and compare it between 6 countries with 6 different slide decks, or 7, or however many, is pretty difficult. And it's hard to draw conclusions from such scattered data. It's great to have if you're looking at one country, but trying to compare countries can be difficult. So what I would suggest to these researchers, and maybe they're planning to do this, and I hope they do, is to try to pull this all together and do one slide where they draw some conclusions between all these various countries, which would make it a little bit more digestible, and might lead to some more effective takeaways.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Payne. Thank you, class. Bye, everybody.